My parents neglected me in the hospital to celebrate brother's fake award. Now they want my money for his prison bail. I'm 26. I had built a career I loved in marketing, working my way up to senior project manager at a respected firm. I had a steady life, a comfortable apartment in the city. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, but beneath it all there were cracks in my family's foundation that I had been ignoring for years. It started with a car accident 2 weeks ago, a near-fatal crash that left me in the hospital with multiple injuries. The memory of that night still haunts me. The heavy rain falling in sheets, the way my car hydroplaned on the slick asphalt, the terrifying moment when I lost control. I remember the screech of metal against metal as my car slammed into the guardrail, the world spinning as the vehicle flipped over. Then darkness. When I woke up, I was in a sterile hospital room, surrounded by beeping monitors and the antiseptic smell that seems to permeate every medical facility. The doctor told me I was lucky to be alive. I had a fractured leg that required surgery, 2 broken ribs that made every breath painful, and internal bleeding that needed immediate attention. But the physical pain paled in comparison to the emotional agony of what followed. I spent days in that hospital bed waiting for my parents to show up. They were my emergency contacts, and the hospital had informed them multiple times about my condition, yet day after day I lay there alone. The nurses gave me sympathetic looks as they checked my vitals, probably wondering why no one had come to visit. I texted them daily, my fingers shaking as I typed out messages, asking if they were coming, telling them I needed them. The responses were sparse and noncommittal. "We'll try to come soon," or "We're very busy right now." It wasn't until a family friend came to visit that I understood why. She mentioned, almost casually, that my brother Thomas was being honored at an awards ceremony. My parents were consumed with preparations for his big moment, too busy to spare even an hour for their critically injured daughter. Growing up, Thomas had always been the golden child. 3 years younger than me, he could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. When he dropped out of college to find himself, they supported his journey of self-discovery. When he bounced from job to job, they called him a free spirit. When he needed money, their checkbook was always open. Meanwhile, I worked hard, got good grades, built a career, and somehow it was never quite enough. My friend, bless her heart, felt terrible being the bearer of bad news. She stayed with me for hours, helping me piece together what was happening through social media updates and mutual friends. My parents weren't just attending Thomas's ceremony, they had helped organize it, spending weeks coordinating with his company and making sure everything was perfect. They had even hired a professional photographer to document the entire event. But what really broke me was discovering their travel plans. Through a Facebook post my mother had forgotten to hide from me, I learned they had booked a 2-week trip to Rome to celebrate Thomas's achievement. They were planning to leave the day after his ceremony while I was still in the hospital, still recovering from surgery, still needing their support. When I finally got the courage to confront them about it via text, their response was devastating. "We can't miss Thomas's awards ceremony," they wrote. "It's a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for him and he needs us there. We'll visit you after we get back from Rome. You understand, don't you? You've always been the strong one." Those words, "you've always been the strong one," hit me like a physical blow. It was their way of justifying their neglect, their excuse for taking me for granted. Because I had always managed on my own, they assumed I didn't need them, or perhaps they just didn't want to acknowledge that I did. I was released from the hospital after a week, still in considerable pain and struggling to manage basic tasks. My boyfriend Mark had been amazing throughout all of this, taking time off work to help care for me, but he couldn't hide his disgust at my parents' behavior. When they finally deigned to visit me at home, bringing wilted flowers and forced smiles, Mark could barely contain his anger. Their visit felt like a performance, an obligation they needed to fulfill before they could leave for their Italian vacation with a clear conscience. They made small talk about my recovery, carefully avoiding any mention of Thomas or their upcoming trip. When I brought it up directly, asking how they could leave the country while I was still recovering from major surgery, they deflected. "We've already paid for everything," my mother said. "And Thomas really needs this celebration. He's been working so hard." It wasn't until 3 months later that the truth about Thomas's achievement began to surface. What started as whispers and rumors soon exploded into a full-blown scandal. The award he'd received was for exceptional performance in investment management, but it turned out that performance was built on a foundation of lies. Thomas had been running a sophisticated investment fraud scheme, promising his clients unrealistic returns and using new investments to pay off earlier investors, a classic Ponzi scheme. He had fabricated documents, manipulated account statements, and even created fake client testimonials to maintain the illusion of success. The award ceremony had been part of his elaborate facade, a way to legitimize his operations and attract more investors. The truth came out when one of his larger investors became suspicious and hired a forensic accountant. The investigation revealed that Thomas had defrauded clients of over $5 million. The FBI got involved, and suddenly my brother's face was all over the local news. My parents' reaction to the scandal was predictable. They immediately rushed to Thomas's defense, hiring expensive lawyers and mortgaged their house to pay for his legal fees. Then they turned to me. The text came late one night, "We need to talk about family helping family." When I agreed to meet them for coffee, they laid out their request. They wanted me to loan them $200,000, nearly all of my savings, to help with Thomas's legal defense. They had already depleted their retirement accounts and taken out loans, but it wasn't enough. When I refused, their true colors showed once again. "How can you be so selfish?" my mother demanded. "He's your brother. After everything we've done for you." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at that. "Everything you've done for me, like abandoning me in the hospital to celebrate the brother who turned out to be a criminal, like choosing his celebration over my recovery, what exactly have you done for me?" They left the coffee shop in anger, my mother in tears, my father muttering about ungrateful children. That night, I received a barrage of texts from family members, all urging me to do the right thing and help my brother. None of them mentioned how my parents had treated me during my accident. None of them acknowledged the years of favoritism and neglect. That was when I made the decision to cut ties. I blocked their numbers, unfriended them on social media, and asked my friends not to pass along any information about my life. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most liberating. Thomas eventually pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. My parents attended every court session, crying in the gallery as their precious son was led away in handcuffs. They gave interviews to local media, painting him as a misunderstood young man who had made a mistake. They never once acknowledged the lives he had ruined, the retirement savings he had stolen, the trust he had betrayed. In the years since I cut contact, I've learned a lot about family, both the family we're born with and the family we choose. Mark proposed 6 months ago, and we're planning a small, intimate wedding with the people who truly care about us. My chosen family includes my friend who visited me in the hospital when my own parents wouldn't, and Mark's parents, who have shown me what unconditional love really looks like. I've also started therapy, working through the years of emotional neglect and learning to value myself. My therapist helped me understand that my parents' behavior wasn't my fault. It was their own inability to love both their children equally and fairly. Their love was conditional, based on compliance and convenience, and I deserved better than that. Sometimes I still get messages from extended family members, updating me on my parents' lives. They've apparently sold their house to pay off the legal bills and moved into a small apartment. They visit Thomas in prison every week, still convinced he was just misunderstood. They tell anyone who will listen that they're two victims of circumstance, of a cruel justice system, of an ungrateful daughter who abandoned them in their time of need. But I know the truth. I wasn't the one who abandoned anyone. They made their choice long ago, consistently choosing Thomas over me, excusing his behavior while holding me to impossible standards. The car accident just made their priorities crystal clear. I'm sharing this story not because I want sympathy, but because I want others in similar situations to know it's okay to walk away from toxic family relationships. Blood doesn't excuse behavior, and family isn't a blank check to abuse someone's love and trust. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to let go of the people who never really held on to you in the first place. Today, I'm stronger than ever. My leg is healed, though I still walk with a slight limp in cold weather. My career has flourished, I've been promoted to director of marketing, and I'm leading projects I'm passionate about. Mark and I are house hunting, planning our future together. I'm surrounded by people who love me unconditionally, who show up when I need them, who celebrate my successes and support me through my struggles. I've learned that family isn't about DNA or shared last names. It's about love, respect, and showing up for each other when it matters most. Sometimes, the family we choose is more real than the family we're born into, and that's okay. We all deserve to be loved for who we are, not for what others want us to be. As for my parents and Thomas, I wish them well, but I no longer wish for their approval or love. I've found something better: self-respect, peace, and the knowledge that I deserve more than conditional love. Sometimes the happiest endings come not from fixing broken relationships but from having the courage to walk away from them.